On a warm Sunday morning in June, the music inside Pulse Nightclub still thumped like a heartbeat. It was Latin night, and the dance floor glowed with color, neon lights, bright shirts, laughter, the easy rhythm of people who felt safe. For many in Orlando's LGBTQ community, Pulse wasn't just a club, it was a refuge, a place where you could hold someone's hand without thinking twice, a place where birthdays were celebrated, friendships were loud, and the outside world felt far away. Some had come after long shifts at work. Others were celebrating small milestones, a new job, a reunion, a simple Saturday night with friends. Strangers became dance partners, phones lit up with selfies, drinks sweated in raised hands. If you had walked past the building at 1:58 a.m., you would have heard nothing but music and joy. At 2:02 a.m., everything changed. The first gunshots didn't immediately make sense. Some thought it was part of the music or maybe fireworks. Then came screaming. People ducked instinctively. Glass shattered. The strobe lights kept flashing, cruelly out of sync with reality. Within seconds, the dance floor transformed into chaos. A gunman had entered the club and begun firing. People ran for exits they had used 100 times before, now suddenly too small, too far, too crowded. Others dropped to the floor and crawled. Friends lost sight of each other in the panic. Some hid behind the bar. Some locked themselves in bathrooms. The music stopped, but the noise did not. The sharp cracks of gunfire, the cries for help, the desperate scramble for cover. Police officers nearby heard the shots and arrived within minutes. They exchanged fire with the attacker near the entrance, briefly slowing him. But he moved deeper into the building, toward a bathroom area, taking hostages with him. What had begun as a rapid burst of violence became a drawn-out, suffocating standoff. Inside the bathrooms, dozens of people were trapped together in darkness. Phones came out, text messages were sent to loved ones. "I'm in the bathroom. I love you. Call the police." Outside, sirens multiplied. The street filled with flashing lights. Officers set up a perimeter. Families, alerted by frantic calls and social media posts, began arriving, not knowing whether their sons, daughters, and friends were alive inside. Around 2:35 a.m., the gunman called 911. He pledged allegiance to the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant and spoke about U.S. military actions overseas. Investigators would later learn his name, Omar Mateen, a 29-year-old security guard from Florida. At that moment, though, the name didn't matter to those hiding on the other side of the bathroom door. What mattered was the sound of his footsteps, the fear that he might come back. Time stretched painfully. Negotiators tried to communicate. Officers listened for movement inside. The hostages waited in silence, afraid even to whisper. Some were injured and bleeding. Others tried to comfort strangers pressed shoulder to shoulder in the dark. Outside, news began to spread across the country. Television crews arrived. Social media lit up with confusion and horror. But the most agonizing waiting was happening on the sidewalk, where parents and friends stared at their phones, hoping for one more message. As the hours passed, law enforcement faced an impossible decision. Intelligence from inside suggested the gunman was growing more agitated. There were fears he might begin killing hostages systematically. Waiting any longer could cost more lives. At 5:02 a.m., officers moved. An armored vehicle punched a hole through the bathroom wall. Flashbangs exploded. Officers rushed in through the breach amid smoke, dust, and shouting. Hostages scrambled out through the opening as police engaged the gunman in a final exchange of gunfire. By 5:15 a.m., it was over. The shooter was dead. What followed was a silence that felt heavier than the noise that had filled the night. Ambulances lined the street. The injured were rushed to nearby hospitals. Medical staff worked frantically as victims kept arriving. Police began the grim task of clearing the building, room by room. As daylight broke over Orlando, the numbers began to emerge. 49 people had been killed. Dozens more were injured by gunfire. Many others were hurt while trying to escape. It was, at the time, the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. In the days that followed, the focus shifted to understanding what had happened. The Federal Bureau of Investigation led the investigation. They learned that Mateen had previously been on their radar for extremist statements, but had not been deemed an imminent threat. They found evidence that he had consumed large amounts of online extremist propaganda and had pledged loyalty to ISIS during the attack, though there was no proof he received direct orders. They also uncovered a more complicated picture of his personal life, signs of internal conflict, anger, and isolation. But for the families of the victims, these details offered little comfort. The names and faces of those lost began to circulate. They were bartenders, students, accountants, artists. Many were young, many were Latino. Each had come to Pulse that night for music, community, and a sense of belonging. Vigils were held across the United States and around the world. Rainbow flags flew at half-mast. Strangers hugged in city squares. The attack was widely recognized not only as an act of terrorism, but as a profound wound to the LGBTQ community, a place that had been a sanctuary turned into a crime scene. In Orlando, the club itself became a memorial. Flowers, candles, and handwritten notes covered the sidewalks. People visited not to dance, but to remember. The story of that night is often told through statistics and timelines, but what lingers are the human moments. The last texts sent from a dark bathroom, the friends who refused to leave each other's side, the officers who ran toward gunfire, the parents waiting outside for news that would change their lives forever. Pulse was meant to be a place where people felt free to be themselves. On June 12, 2016, that sense of safety was shattered. Yet in the grief that followed, something else became visible. The strength of a community that refused to disappear into fear. Today, the site stands not just as the location of a tragedy, but as a reminder of the lives that were lived, the love that filled the room before 2:02 a.m., and the enduring demand that such spaces of refuge be protected. The music stopped that night. The meaning of Pulse did not.